Are we sitting on my bed? Yes. Yes, we are. Have I made it? No. No, I have not. Are we going to read anyway? Yes. Yes, we are. Okay. Chapter 21. Wednesday, December 26th. December 26, 2008. Every year, I get the after Christmas blues. You know, that sort of sad feeling because you have to wait a whole year before you get to feel those holiday feelings again. I'm there right now. Plus, Dad had to leave early this morning. Emma gave me a book for Christmas. She called it a grimoire. I did some research, and the majority of the world connects the word grimoire with the words evil, black magic, and devilry. I'm not doing any of that, so I'm calling it my spell book. Speaking of yesterday, I came home to 2 lectures after Emma's house. 1, Christmas is for families, not friends. This was mostly Mom. The fact I had a Christmas present to deliver was dismissed as irrelevant. 2, I should give up my powers for the betterment of my family and for the betterment of my future. This was all Mom. AKA, if I want to be a normal person and grow up to have a normal family, yeah, right, and a normal job and a normal life, blah, 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 blah. Mom still doesn't get it. I'm tired of explaining. I'm not giving up my powers. I like my life with magic. The end. I asked Dad about Emma's vision, but he doesn't know a whole lot about psychic magic. It's a different elemental magic than what witches use. I called Gabby to see what she knew, also to see if she knew where Grandma is, or at least how I can get a hold of her. Long story short, Gabby doesn't know anything about visions where you can communicate directly with yourself, but she does know where I can send my letter and how. It's super cool. Nikki had been told not to write down the method of communication, just in case her journal ever fell into the wrong hands. It was, as Gabby had told her, an ancient way of communication, one to which only few magical beings still had access. Nikki closed her journal, got out the letter she had written to Kate, put it in an envelope, and sealed it. She grabbed the vanilla-scented candle Margaret had given her for Christmas and lit it with a small breath, smiling as she remembered her first lesson with Gabby. Sitting down on the floor, Nikki set the candle in front of her and the envelope next to it. She meditated for a little while, trying to get her mind clear and ready to focus on the task at hand. After about 5 minutes, mind ready, Nikki opened her eyes. With both of her hands cupping, she rotated her hands above the candle, the top hand always palm away from her, and the bottom hand always palm towards her. As her hands switched their positions, she changed the direction her palms were facing to maintain the pattern. After she felt comfortable in the pattern, she recited, Invoco te quasi magum, que mihi respondes, ut benefica ap nepti Nikki ad avium Kate. When the flame turned purple, she stopped reciting and moving her hands. Nikki took the envelope, held it over the flame, and let go. Catching the envelope, the flame held it above itself for a mere moment. The envelope engulfed in purple flame. Then, with a flash, it was gone. No ash, no smoke, just the slightest hint of lavender scenting the air. The flame flickered back to its original golden yellow. Nikki closed her eyes and with a sigh of relief put out the flame magically. There was a knock on the door. You better not be lighting candles in there. We've talked about this, Margaret called. I just blew it out, Nikki said. She never understood why her mother would give her candles simply to ban her from lighting them. Nikki chewed her lip. Was it possible Margaret knew the other purposes candles could serve? No. If Margaret had known, she wouldn't have allowed candles in their home at all. Nikki's phone rang. She looked at it. It was Emma. Hey, what's up? Nikki answered. Hey, Emma said, I think I figured out how to convince Nelly to help us. December 26/08. I'm showing Joe today. If I try to just tell her, she won't believe me. She'll think I'm making it up. She'll think I've lost my mind. Or worse, she'll think it's a joke and tell people. I need to show her like I showed Wyatt. I wonder how he is. I tried calling him yesterday, but it just went straight to voicemail. But it was also Christmas, so he probably forgot to charge his phone. Again. As Nelly sat on her bed considering her question, her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID. Speak of the devil, she said to herself, and then answered. Hey, Wyatt, what's up? It's not Wyatt, a woman's voice said. Miss Fletcher? Nelly asked, confused as to why Wyatt's mom, Michelle, would be calling from Wyatt's phone. What's wrong? Hey, kid, Michelle said. I didn't know if you heard. Wyatt just got out of the hospital. What happened? Nelly asked, standing up, her breath caught in her chest. Well, he says he doesn't remember much. He was at that bonfire, and the earthquake made the whole thing get out of hand, Michelle said, her voice cracked. She swallowed, steadying herself. I would have called sooner, but between calls with his dad and Christmas... No worries, Miss Fletcher. Is he okay? Yeah, the doctor said it was a good thing the EMT found him when he did, much longer and there could have been permanent damage. Michelle sighed. When would be a good time to come see him? Dinner? Tonight? He's sleeping right now, Michelle said. I'll be round by 6? 6 is perfect. See you then. Nelly added a few goodbyes before she hung up. Falling back down onto her bed, hot tears pricked at the edges of her eyes. She smeared her hand over her face. Joe knocked on Nelly's already open door and walked in with a basket of clean clothes on her hip. Hey, Dad says all this is yours, but I think there might be a few of my bikini bottoms in here. Joe put the basket at the foot of Nelly's bed and searched through the clothes. Why didn't you tell me Wyatt's in the hospital? Nelly snapped. What? Wyatt's in the hospital? Joe looked up from the laundry. No, his mom said they just let him out. Why didn't you tell me? How was I supposed to know? Joe shot back. You went to the bonfire with him. You were in the same place as he was when the earthquake happened. How did you not know? As soon as the words were out of her mouth, Nelly remembered. Joe had caught a ride home with Grace. Wow, Joe said. He may have been my ride, but he's your friend. I don't talk to the guy every day. You're supposed to keep tabs on your friends. I just thought you would have known or heard, Nelly said, deflated. Well, I didn't, Joe said, trying to hide the hurt, but it seeped out in her words. Nelly sighed. I'm sorry. Joe shrugged but wouldn't meet Nelly's eyes. Joe, grab your suit. I've got to show you something, Nelly said, standing up again, this time determined rather than shocked. Right now? Right now. Nelly threw their mom's journal into a bag. Go, change. It took Joe entirely too long to pick out a swimsuit, as usual. But finally, the girls were in the truck. I'll spare you the silent and awkward car ride. You see, Nelly didn't volunteer any information as to where or why, despite Joe's many questions. So Joe settled into a well-practiced sulk for the rest of the drive. Once they reached the parking lot, Nelly finally spoke. Here we are. Nelly had parked in the same spot she had 11 days ago. It felt like a lifetime ago. Joe hopped out of the truck. Nelly grabbed her bag, locked the truck up, and started on the hike. Okay, so we're at the cove, but why? Joe asked as they hiked. Nelly didn't answer. Joe groaned. Just tell me, what's with all the cloak and dagger? Number 1, you'll never believe me. Heck, I wouldn't believe me, Nelly said as she pushed her way through the brambles. Okay, what's number 2? Number 2, you can't tell anyone, and I figured if I made sure you believed me, you wouldn't tell anyone. Anyone? Like not even Dad? Joe said mischievously. Joe loved a good secret. Dad knows, Nelly admitted. What? Joe squeaked out. She murmured something that sounded a lot like lame under her breath before saying, Why would you tell him before you told me? 'Cause Dad is Dad. Duh. Yeah, okay, I see that, Joe conceded, shrugging her shoulders. They got to the beach and Nelly dropped her bag onto the hot sand. Take your clothes off. Nelly took her shirt and shorts off. We're getting wet for this, Joe asked, stripping down to her neon pink one-piece. No matter how many times their dad told her sharks went for contrasting colors, Joe always wore the brightest swimsuits she could find because she loved the way they looked against her tan. Yup, Nelly said as they walked toward the water. Oh, but it's freezing, Joe whined as the waves lapped at her toes. Do we have to get in? Yes, Nelly said as watching the waves. And you're going in first. What happened next will take longer for me to tell you than it took for it to happen. Nelly shoved Joe as a larger wave came in. Joe squealed as she splashed face first into the water, the wave pulling her deeper. Nelly dived, wiggled out of her bikini bottoms, and changed, a twinge of pain shooting through her legs. Wrapping her bikini bottom around her wrist, Nelly looked around underwater. When she saw Joe, no more than a bundle of flailing limbs, Nelly swam towards her, grabbed her arm, and pulled her deeper into the water. When they both finally came up for air, only a few seconds had passed since Nelly had pushed Joe in. "What the heck?" Joe spluttered. "Joe, look!" Nelly did a shallow somersault so Joe could get the full effect of Nelly's transformation. Her iridescent tail glittered in the sunlight momentarily before sinking down as Nelly broke the surface again, bracing for Joe's reaction. Holy bananas. Is this for real? Joe's eyes and mouth were popped wide open like a cartoon character. Yes, Nelly said, feeling strangely shy. She cleared her throat. So, I'm a mermaid. Can I touch it? Joe asked. If someone had shown Joe's expression out of context, if someone had shown Nelly's... Okay, hold on. If someone had shown Nelly Joe's expression out of context, she would have guessed Joe was finally getting to meet Orlando Bloom. You want... What? Nelly said with a laugh. Can I touch it? Your tail or fin? Joe said, pointing into the water at Nelly's tail. I guess. Nelly floated on her back. Joe put her hand out to touch Nelly's tail. It was wet, but soft like peach fuzz. I kind of expected it to be slimy, like really nasty. I thought so too, Nelly said. It's cold, but not like super cold, just cool. Not quite clammy, but like you just ran an ice cube over it a second ago. Yeah. Oh, dude. Joe's eyes got wider, if that was even possible. Do you think I'll get one? Why would you want one? Nelly scoffed, moving to face her sister. I can't surf anymore. This happens, she said, gesturing towards all of herself. Every single time I get in the water. Why would you want that? Are you crazy? Why wouldn't you want that? To live in the water? I would kill for that. You won't have to go that far, Nelly said, shaking her head as the two bobbed in the water. Joe, listen, you can't tell anyone. I'm serious. Duh, Joe said, rolling her eyes. People either wouldn't believe me or they'd want to chop you up and study your DNA. Yeah, thanks, Nelly deadpanned. You know what I mean, Joe splashed Nelly. Hey, how fast does that thing go? She pointed at Nelly's tail again. What? Let's test this thing out, Joe said. But I get a head start. She duck dived into the water, racing toward a rock about 75 yards away from them. Nelly smiled and swam after her sister. Her tail felt strong and powerful. She could feel her leg muscles under the tail's exterior. She not only passed Joe, but lapped her. Eventually, Joe reached the rock, where Nelly had already been sitting for a bit. She didn't want to lap her too many times. So, I think it works, Nelly said, grinning. I've got to say, I'm glad I told you. This was kind of terrifying before, but man, the power behind this tail is unreal. I feel like, I don't know, like I'm reconnected with the water. Does that even make sense? Yeah, Joe said between breaths. Also, shut up, she wheezed, clutching her side. Dang, I thought I was in better shape. Nelly laughed. You're in great shape. I'm just in better shape, she teased as she splashed her tail in the water. Whoa, deja vu. What? Joe asked as she climbed up to sit on the rock next to Nelly. Do you remember racing out here when we were kids? We'd pretend we were mermaids and splash our legs around like they were tails, Joe practically screamed. Nelly nodded, laughing as the memory filled her up. I totally forgot about that. I must have been super young. You would have been. Mom was still alive. Yeah, Joe said softly. She used to sit on the beach and yell at us not to go too far, but she never got in the water. Joe's face changed suddenly. She gasped. Mom was one too, wasn't she? Nelly nodded again. Yeah, remember that book Dad gave me? Yeah, was that more mermaid stuff? It was more than mermaid stuff, Joe. It's where it all started. It's a journal that's been kept for generations. It's got Mom's writing in it too. Did you bring it? Joe asked. Yeah, it's in my bag on the beach, Nelly said. She was no longer smiling. Her eyebrows had furrowed and she chewed her lip. There's more, though. More? Joe asked. Are you kidding? Is Dad like a wizard or something awesome like that? If we're part troll or something nasty, I don't want to know, okay? Joe put up a hand to stop Nelly from telling her. Joe, I told Wyatt before I told you, Nelly admitted. Joe frowned for a second before saying, I guess I should be hurt, but if something this wicked happened to me, I'd totally tell Grace before I told you. No offense. Who else knows? You, Dad, Wyatt, and a few girls from school, Nelly said. What? Joe looked hurt this time. You told some strangers before me? Joe, they basically knew before I did. Nelly rolled her eyes. Are those the girls you and Wyatt were arguing about, the ones with the school project? Nikki and Emma, Nelly confirmed. But how do you know? The house tells me everything, Joe said, waggling her eyebrows mysteriously. So how'd they know? That's the part that's more. Nikki and Emma aren't normal. Nelly wanted to phrase it right, but nothing she was thinking was going to make any sense aloud. It barely made sense in her head. I mean, they're like me. They're mermaids too? Joe looked excited again. No, they're different. But I can't tell you until you swear not to tell anyone. Nelly could tell Joe was going to wave away the promise casually, so she added, Seriously, Josephine, this isn't my secret. The only reason I'm telling you is because you're my sister, and I think you deserve the whole truth. I didn't even tell Wyatt this. Okay. Joe's expression grew somber. They hardly ever used each other's full names, so when they did, it meant they were very serious. Joe had to repress the giggles that always came when she needed to be serious. She took a deep, calming breath. Okay, tell me. Emma and Nikki aren't normal, Nelly said again. She wasn't sure how it was best to do this, but she also knew that any second Joe's giggles would break the seriousness of the moment. Emma is a psychic medium, and Nikki is a witch. Joe's mouth moved like she was trying to speak, but nothing came out. The words wouldn't form. Nelly had been right to show Joe her secret. If Nelly would have just told her, Joe wouldn't have bought it for a second. Joe closed her mouth as she tried to process this new information. It was a new world now. 10 minutes ago, mermaids were pretend. Now they were real, and her sister was one, and her mom was one, and she might be one, hopefully. But witches and psychics? Wasn't that a bit much? Say something, Nelly prodded. Seriously? Joe spat out. It was all she could muster. So this you believe? Nelly splashed her tail. But not witches and psychics? Well, no. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can see this. Joe gestured at Nelly's tail. I can feel this. She squeezed Nelly's lower thigh. How am I supposed to believe in witches and psychics? Can you at least promise you won't say anything? Nelly pushed her hair out of her face and squeezed her hands together. Listen, Joe, these aren't my secrets. True, I barely know these chicks, but they're still entitled to their privacy, you know? I mean, I already said I would keep their secrets. Sheesh, Joe said. Do your friends know I know? They're not really my friends, and that's the other reason I wanted to tell you. Because you have a hard time making friends? Joe nodded knowingly, gently putting her hand on Nelly's shoulder. No, because I don't know if... Wait a minute! Nelly squinted her face, shrugging Joe's hand off her shoulder and putting her hand up as if to stop Joe. I do not have a hard time making friends. Ugh, please, Joe said, rolling her eyes. You have literally one friend, but focus. You don't know if what? Well, Nelly said, side-eyeing Joe, I don't know if I can trust these girls. She told Joe about the school project and Jess, about Emma and Nikki revealing their powers, and how they had come to the house to ask for help. She told her about the earthquake and the pitcher of water. She told her about changing and how it hurt, and explained why she didn't think she could trust Nikki and Emma, using a lot of Wyatt's logic, finally ending with why she felt she should help them anyway. Since when do you listen to Wyatt over following what you believe to be right? Joe said. What? You and Wyatt have been friends for basically my whole life. You've never had a problem telling Wyatt he was full of it. If you felt like it was the right thing to do, no matter what anyone else said, including Wyatt, you went ahead and did it. Now all of a sudden you grow a tail and lose your backbone? Joe said it all so quickly, Nelly barely had time to register anything. They sat in a silence for a moment, then Nelly said, You're right. I know, Joe said, smug. Nelly rolled her eyes again. I'm going to help them, not to spite Wyatt, Nelly said, and not because they asked me, but because if I'm stuck with this power and can't follow my own dreams, then I'm going to at least help people with my mermaid abilities. I'll try and make good out of this whole situation. Good, Joe said. P.S. Your eyes are green now. Did you know that? Wyatt told me. Anyway, there's one other reason I needed to tell you all of this, Nelly said. Wait here. Nelly dived back into the water, swam to shore, grabbed the journal out of her bag, dived back into the water, and swam back over to Joe. Geez, you know that took you like a minute? Joe asked. Oh, Nelly said. You'd leave Michael Phelps in the dust. Joe laughed. Nelly beamed. Well, she'd always enjoyed swimming. Nelly had preferred surfing because she could move almost effortlessly through the water on her board. But this was, well, there's no other word for it. Magic. Swimming as a mermaid would be the saving grace for Nelly. It would teach her a new love of water and ocean. One day, when asked to describe it, she would say it was what flying probably felt like. For now, though, the relationship between mermaid and ocean was merely beginning. I wasn't even trying to go super fast, Nelly said. Joe mock groaned. Your humility is revolting, she teased. Whatever, Nelly said, laughing as she pulled on Joe. Now focus, you have to read this wet or it snaps shut. She held the book out of the water and then placed it in the water where it relaxed open. This was Mom's. Joe slipped off the rock and into the water gracefully. And Grandma's and great-grandma's, etc., Nelly said, handing the book to Joe, whose eyes grew three sizes as they tried to absorb every single word of their mother's writing. 26 December 2008. Between the magic of Christmas and the magic of my regular life, I got an idea on how to convince Nelly to help us, or at the very least, show her we're not the bad guys. Nikki's here, Rochelle called. In here, Emma called from her room where she sat, still wearing PJs on her maid bed. Nikki came in a few seconds later. So, she said, flopping onto the foot of Emma's bed. She was wearing her favorite yoga pants and a Taylor Swift t-shirt her dad had gotten her for Christmas. What's your brilliant idea? Emma sat up. A seance. Interesting, Nikki said. Go on. Emma stood up and paced as she talked. We invite her mom. Ooh, good idea. However, Emma said, her index finger up as she continued pacing. I foresee two main problems. The first being actually getting Nelly to come to the seance. And the second is if Nelly's mom already moved on and doesn't have any unfinished business, getting a hold of her might be difficult. Not impossible, but not easy. Okay, Nikki said. Not impossible, but not easy basically sums up the whole thing. Emma laughed hollowly. Essentially. Any ideas on how to get Nelly to actually show up? Nikki said. Do you think this could actually work? Emma asked, crossing her arms. I have no idea, Nikki admitted, but I also don't have a better plan. Fair, Emma said, still pacing. I've been thinking about how to get her to come. And? Emma put her finger up. Tell her the whole truth. Nikki cringed. Not that I think honesty is bad, but it hasn't historically worked for us. Besides, what if we can't get her mom? Then it might look like we lied anyway. True. So, magic her? Emma lifted up another finger. Nikki shook her head. Bad. Straight up bad idea. Agreed, Emma said, lifting a third finger. Tell her there's a way to communicate with Jess Pedersen. Nikki tapped her fingers on her pursed lips. Well, she said, how hard would it be to get Jess? Not hard at all. Emma put her hand down. Jess said she'd be happy to come again if I had more questions or if Nelly needed additional help. Nikki nodded. I like it. When should we do it? A seance usually requires a bit of preparation, but if it works for my grandma, I imagine we could do it as soon as tomorrow, Emma said brightly. Do you want to call Nelly or should I? Nikki asked. She snorted. Actually, I'll call her, Emma smiled. You guys don't exactly have what I would call a friendly relationship. Yeah, Nikki said, stretching the word out. Sorry about that. It's not a problem. Emma grabbed her phone. You guys are two different personalities, taking your different magical abilities differently, Nikki offered. Emma smiled and said, exactly. That is the end, I believe. Yes. That is the end of chapter 21. So, Will they be able to get Nelly to come to the seance and convince her that they're not the bad guys? Will Joe be able to keep the secrets? Tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat place. As always, you can get the book on Amazon. And I'd leave a link. But unfortunately, despite having posted consistently for basically ever, YouTube doesn't care. And I still can't leave links in my description. So you just go onto Amazon and search A Change of Tide, DC Contour, CONTOR. Yes, it will autocorrect to CONTOUR, like contour, like makeup. But that is incorrect. You'll have to change it. There you go. If you also put in A Change of Tide, DC Contour with quotation marks, it should bring up the book. So if you really can't figure it out, if you comment, I'll make sure I can leave a link in the comments. I just can't leave a link in the description. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, see you next week.